Hi, everybody. um,
Did you get it going? Is it working?
yeah, no, we're live.
Okay.
We see how this is gonna go already. Uh, welcome to the release party live stream for Courting the Dragon. I am your host, Sarah Cleveland. If you don't know why you're here, stick around. I guess you'll figure it out. And with me is my co-host, Rand Stetton, and
Hello.
we're gonna hopefully celebrate this book coming out. So for anyone who is not sure, like I said, why they're here or is confused, today is the release of my second book. Courting the Dragon is the second in the series, and yeah, which section should we jump into first? Because
Well, I would say I mean like um I think it's always cool to like start with like let's what's it about? What's it about, Sarah? Because I'm gonna say right from the outset I have no special like knowledge about this book because I have not had a chance to read it. I just got my my pre-order in today though, and I'm super psyched about that. Like I woke up to the little email that was like, your book's here. I was like, yay. So what went on leading into Courting the Dragon? So like, give us a little bit of a stinger for saving the dragon.
okay, so a summary of the first book.
Yeah, why
Okay.
not?
Okay, so the first book, for those who have not read it, yeah, so in the first book we meet our protagonist, Penelope, who wants to learn magic, and her father's very, very against it, for a whole host of reasons that you kind of learn as the book goes on. But she, in the course of pursuing this, meets a special someone because this is a romance novel technically, and um,
You
I get.
you have to challenge yourself to do it without
Oh no,
spoilers.
no, I got distracted by the chat for a second. So I yeah, so she meets a special someone who turns out to not quite be what he seems, and this is really hard to do without spoiling the first book. Actually, I you know I wrote that twist, and it's a great twist, and I love it, but it makes the book so hard to talk about for people who haven't read it.
Is there a
Um,
moratorium? There's not a moratorium on this yet, right? You want people to not know the spoiler.
I mean, it's been out for 5 years. It's kind of like,
If you haven't read it yet, this is your reminder to do it.
okay, if you haven't read it yet, plug your ears really quick. So it turns out her love interest in the book they're referred to as hybrids, but he's a dragon shifter basically. Okay, you can unplug your ears now. So
They're gonna sit there and they're gonna constantly be going, wait, I've gotten through this whole stream and she's not told me to unplug my ears.
yeah, you can unplug your ears. So uh, so in the first book there's some misadventures and things of that nature, and it's kind of spoiling the end of the book, but she eventually does get to go study magic, which is kind of relevant to the plot of the second book. So the second book, we're set up. She's coming home basically for like summer vacation from like Magic College, I think is the best way to describe it. And her father has this ultimatum, which is you're gonna find yourself a fiance before you go back to school, or you're not going back to school. Is basically the ultimatum, which just comes way out of left field because that's never been his MO as a father or as a king. He doesn't have like there's no political motivation that makes sense. So so going into the second book, the characters are all kind of like, what just happened? And so then obviously the book then unfolds as to why this demand is being made and how they're gonna dodge it, because the other part of the demand is, yeah, that guy you like, he won't do. No, 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 no. It has to be from this list. So that's kind of going into
So it's incorporating some of those like some of those like problematic historical ideas with like suitors and all that kind
Yeah,
like hey, this is somebody you want to marry because there's status associated with it. Like
yeah.
I think one of the things that I like so much about the first one is that there's being a princess is really cool. I mean, look at me. I know I'm living that life. Being a princess is really cool, but also there's all these underlying problems when it comes to status, when it comes to expectation, when it comes to living along a specific dictated path that Penelope wants to follow what it is that she wants to do because it's fulfilling for her. And so there's more of that she's going to crash into in this book.
There's definitely more of that, and the one of the themes that kind of also I've tried to incorporate in both books is um the loneliness that can also exist when you are separated, by what's really a constructed difference in between you and another person. So the developing friendship between Penelope and her now former maid Tiffany and things like that. So how that relationship develops was one of the things. It's very different in Courting the Dragon that wasn't Saving the Dragon in that it's matured and become much more of a friendship and less of a you know employer employee relationship like it was in the first book.
Tiffany, I think I've said to you that Tiffany and Mary are my two favorite characters from the first book. I just love them so much. But I also love these characters who live these lives where they have to they're living like a normal life underneath the life of extravagance that royalty is living. You also got a compliment on your t-shirt, by the way.
Oh, did I?
DJ Petty gave you a compliment on your t-shirt.
Oh yeah, she was trying to talk me into wearing it this morning because I was gonna wear something else, and she's like, "No, wear your rocker t-shirt.
Have a little yes.
Have a little edge." So
that's right.
I listened.
So by the time this is done, you're gonna be throwing the horns.
Probably not, but
Michelle, I also love Tiffany. Tiffany's my favorite.
I thought Mary was your favorite.
I love them both. I love them both equally. I want to see them go on adventures together, which is nothing obviously when I say that. Like I really do love all the characters in this. If you were to say, okay, somebody's never read these before, Michelle. I said Michelle because I was looking at chat. Sarah.
It's okay.
Michelle, apparently I'm asking you about Sarah's book. How would you describe it? Is it YA? Is it adult? What is it?
So, the first book gets labeled YA a lot, which is fair, I guess. But I would call it new adult, and the reason I would call it new adult is that she's like 25 in book 3. So the character is like aging up as the series progresses. Like this is not like a small portion of her life. Like several years pass between the end of book 2 and the beginning of book 3, which obviously nobody's read book 3 because only 7,000 words of it exist at the moment. But I mean, my brain knows what happens. So there's a considerable age up between book 2 and book 3. So I would call it new adult. Because she's really only, I mean, she's 19 when the action starts in book 2. So, yeah, knowing what I know about book 3, I would consider it new adult, which is kind of like one of those genres that kind of exists.
I love actually that helps me out a lot because I'm really bad when it comes to understanding genres. So that it seems like a good place to exist in. Like somebody said, Deirdre says, I remember there being swears, which I remember reading it and I was like, oh my gosh, I did not expect these to be in the book.
You can swear in YA. Like you can. PG-13. It's technically the book adheres to PG-13 rules because you can get one F-bomb in a PG-13 and there's one. There's one.
I remember when I read it, I like put a little mental check mark next to it and I was like, Sarah, that's your one. That's your one.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I do not believe there's an F-bomb in book 2. Which my mother will be happy to know. I don't think she joined the chat. But on the flip side, I traded that for more like general cursing among the cast. So
there you go.
It's a little more the villain is a little more liberal with his use of, not nice words.
Yeah.
So, but like he's just not a nice person. So, I read a whole blog.
How can you get any not nicer than Melinda in the first book? She's an absolute cruel butthead.
I mean, okay, so he's a different kind of not nice, I should say. So here's the big difference between Melinda and Leander. So Leander's the one of the antagonists for book 2, and I really don't feel like I'm spoiling anything in saying that. Once upon a time, it wasn't supposed to be an obvious thing, but I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything in saying that. Melinda was fun to write. Like, she was just a blast to write because she's so psychotic that it was fun. Leander is, he's slimy, and I don't, like, the entire time I was writing the book, I wanted to, like, just stab him with a butter knife, basically. I think that line is in the book somewhere. I want to say Tiffany said it. Yeah, I hated him. I hated every moment he was on screen. And which really influenced so I rewrote this book like 3 times. That really influenced one of the big plot changes was the fact that I hated this guy so much. But I don't hate his partner in crime though. I don't hate him. I feel very sorry for him. So balance, I guess.
See, now I know that I'm gonna like this guy because I like sleazeballs. I love sleazeballs. I'm actually looking back to see what it said. Kat says, I love the way that everyone talks in the book's dialogue always catches my eye. Hey, goes right back to something that you were talking about earlier about your beliefs on dialogue.
Yeah, I wrote a whole blog post years ago about not censoring your villains. Mostly as a response to like Mom poking at me. She's like, I can't recommend your book to my friends because you drop an F-bomb in it.
Mom, figure it out.
Well, okay. So if my mother were actually in the chat, I gave her the link. So, she would come on here and say that. Like this is not a secret. This criticism is not a secret. And the thing is, I handed her book 2, and I said nothing about the swearing in it. I just handed her the book. She still hasn't read it, which is par for the course. She usually reads my book like 6 months after. Well, I mean, I've only read.
Well, that way you can get
one,
like
but...
that way you can sort of like get all that you can sort of put in your past and be like, what are you talking about? I don't remember. I'm way beyond that now, Mom.
Yeah. So that's I'll be interested to see what she thinks of it. Like, my mom's my biggest supporter, but she's also like, my mom's one of the harshest book critics I think you could ever have read your book, like, legit. So if my mom likes something, then I know it's good.
Cool. Yeah, that's always a good thing to have in a parent. My father was like that too. Anytime I would write, he'd be like, "This could be better." I'm like, "Dad, you don't even want to put a period. Step it up." Step it up, old man. Happy Father's Day, by the way, to everyone out there.
Sorry I put this on Father's Day, guys. I didn't look at it. I was looking for the astrological event with the solstice. I was not looking at, like, U.S. holiday calendar. So, my apologies.
Do you want to do a little reading from the beginning of it and give people a chance to, like, hear what you got going on at the beginning of the book?
Yeah, sure. I can do that. I hit my fancy button. I'm so excited about these buttons. Okay. Yeah, so I will go into the reading of chapter 1 and okay, reading aloud, so much pressure. So I got my wait. Oh no, the book's green, so like the green screen. That's funny. Okay. Note to self.
They have to imagine it's there. They have to imagine it's there.
Well, it's behind me. Note to self, don't hold up the book. It's green. Okay. Chapter 1. Penelope's father was frowning. Behind half-moon reading spectacles, his blue eyes moved quickly, scanning over the text of the letter he held. Penelope fidgeted in silence, not daring to speak. Behind her back, her fingers twisted her ring around on her right hand. It was a magic ring, capable of transporting her to other places she would much rather be. She watched the faint twitches of emotion at the corners of his eyes and lips. There was a tightness there that betrayed the stoic expression he was attempting to maintain. At last, King Halbert set the letter down on his desk with 2 others that he'd already perused. He removed his glasses and placed them on top of the folded parchment. For a long moment, he pinched the bridge of his nose. It was a gesture that Penelope had started associating with her own misbehavior right around 10 years of age. Her stomach tightened. "You've done well," The Dean of Students is quite happy with you. Everyone speaks highly of your academic accomplishments. And yet he sounded like a man whose daughter had just announced she was running off to marry the pig boy. Thank you, Father. To say that Penelope's academic pursuits were a sore spot between them was a gross understatement. It had taken using magic to trick an evil witch into jumping off a cliff before Penelope could convince her father that she belonged at the Academy of Mages. Even then, he hadn't seemed convinced. A year and a half later, Penelope was still more than a little skeptical of his change of heart. She suspected it might have something to do with wanting her distracted from the other sore spot between them. That sore spot's name was Lord Stephen of Steelborough. Well, sort of. She'd only been involved with that witch incident because she'd snuck off to spend the winter solstice before last with the man she loved, who wasn't exactly a man. Lord Stephen was actually a young dragon wizard named Salarath, who had spent the past 50-odd years or so playing the role of Lord Stellan Drakeson, Duke of Steelborg. Currently, he was alternating between personas, establishing himself as his own heir. I don't suppose you've had enough of life at the Academy. Not at all, Father. Every day there is fascinating. There was a long pause as the king considered what to say next. He seemed to be having an inner battle that he was attempting to cover with a blank expression. Something inside him must have won, because that blankness gave way to something resembling resignation. I think it's time that we have an important conversation about your future. Penelope felt her heart rate soar, and her stomach clenched into a knot. She imagined that she must be white as a ghost, but her father didn't seem to actually be looking at her. He was staring at a point over her shoulder rather than meeting her gaze. You're 19 now, and I think it's past time to arrange a betrothal for you. The breath left Penelope's lungs in a rush, as if she'd taken a punch to the gut. Little choking sounds escaped before she got herself under control. Pinpricks of dread crawled over her skin, leaving a numb sensation. There was no way her father was going to give his blessing on her relationship with Salarath, which meant... Did you have someone in mind? She asked. There are many eligible young men in the city for the festival. I will have invitations sent out to them for the solstice ball and a list presented to you. I expect that list to be narrowed down to 1 or 2 candidates before you return to school. Penelope felt her blood pressure rise with every word. By the time he said school, her temper had gotten the better of her. Father, I don't need a ball full of men. You know how I feel about Lord Stephen. There was no blank expression this time. Holbert's features twisted with fury, his ruddy complexion darkening to an unhealthy plum. He is not an option for your future. Surely you can understand that. A memory of the one and only time Penelope and Salarath had ever discussed marriage surfaced in her mind. He had made it perfectly clear at the time that while he loved her, the relationship would eventually have to come to an end. Penelope shoved the memory ruthlessly back down under the water level of her thoughts. Hopefully it would stay there, maybe even drown, and never bother her again. They had never discussed the future a second time after Melinda. The relationship had strengthened and grown in the wake of the witch's attack, so Penelope hoped the outcome of such a discussion would be different this time. I understand no such thing. I love Salarath, and that's the last time you will mention that name or any of his other names in my presence. He stood as he shouted. But father, silence! His fist banged on the desk, making his glasses bounce. A vein throbbed dangerously in his temple, and Penelope shrank back, aghast. Her father had a temper, to be sure, but she had never seen him like this. You will narrow the list down so I may start negotiations, or you will not be going back to school. He sat back down, muttering, Who knows what nonsense they're filling your head with? There was silence for a long moment while Holbert collected himself, and Penelope fought to keep tears from her eyes. Finally, in a calm voice, Holbert asked, Have I made myself clear? Crystal, father. She curtsied, and he gave her a dismissive wave. As she left the study, Penelope snuck a glance back over her shoulder at the king, who was now resting his head in his hands, muttering to himself. She watched as he rose, her letters clutched in his hands, and moved towards the fire. Tears slipped down her cheeks, and she turned away, her steps quickening. So that's the first scene. Should I keep going?
Oh wait, I should unmute myself. I didn't want to be breathing into the mic while you were reading. I mean, why not? Absolutely, go for it. It's all about your book, man.
Okay, so I will.
Well, is there any actually? Well, I know some people mentioned questions, but they wanted to wait for you to finish reading. So I don't know. Do you want to talk about anything in there, or
why don't we go ahead and move to Q&A, and then depending on what the time looks like, we'll come back to the chapter.
Cool. That sounds good. Well, I know I had asked anybody in the chat if they had any questions to ask you to put them in there, but I've got a few prepped up as well. And then like in a little bit we can pop back to the reading.
Okay, cool.
So let's see. Okay, so I wanted to ask. Let me find my little list here. I have to drag it over onto the screen. Um, Let me ask here. So what was your biggest concern or your biggest fear in penning a follow-up to Saving the Dragon?
Uh, I went into it very confident. And the thing was, I went into it knowing what I wanted to write for book 3. So this was a bridge, and so I went into it like very confident. I had a plot. I wrote wrote an outline, which I never do, and I will probably never do again after this experience. Outlines don't work for me, I've discovered. But my biggest fear, I would say, is not maintaining continuity in a way that the readers would appreciate, I guess. I had a fear of my characters not seeming themselves. Ooh, I'm twisting the wrong way. And I would say that's my biggest fear is letting the readers down and the characters not continuing in a natural character arc.
I think one of the coolest things actually about that sequence that you just read is I think one of the most terrifying things for an author to like come face to face with, which is how do I summarize what happened quickly without giving anything away but like also demonstrate full character growth from the previous book. Like, hey, here's a thing that happened, but also I'm not giving you every detail because if you want to go back and read the book, you can. Did you find it like really hard to compose the beginning because you were trying to like fill in these little breadcrumbs of knowledge from the previous book?
Actually, no. This is one of the few scenes that survived all 3 slashings where I, just ripped out. This is one of the original scenes that I wrote in the original draft. So, no, that actually wasn't that big of a deal. Surprisingly.
Awesome. That seems terrifying. So good on you. You tackled it. Let's see. DJ says, does she find a base for self-questioning her love for him? She's aged a little. Did Penelope's sense of what love is for him age with her?
So the first book was very much like young love infatuation. So one of the things that I think people don't quite realize when they read the first book is there's a whole year of letter writing and exchange that goes on in the first book. There's a whole and some covert visits too. So there's a whole year of relationship that kind of gets fast forwarded in the first book, which maybe was a mistake that I made when I wrote the first book. And I can admit that. So they've had this steady like deepening over the last, I think we're on 2 years at this point. So I would say yes, it has definitely aged up. And originally so this was a plot point that changed, because originally there was going to be like a red herring alternate love interest, and that changed because Leander is a slimy piece of shit. So, I probably shouldn't be cursing on here.
I was about to say that was your first bing. That was your first.
Whoops.
Your first S-pop. That's all right.
So I'll try to tone that back down. I mean, we're not monetized anyway, so it doesn't matter. Just saying. So, yeah. So her love and her definition of love has changed. I think we'll see that a lot more in the third book because of the more dramatic age up than you do necessarily in this book. But it's less of a theme than I originally intended it to be, I guess, would be the way I would put it.
So Abby says, and also if I at any point get anybody's name wrong, you are more than welcome to correct me or verbally lambaste me. It's totally okay. So Abby says, what is the main thing that you want readers to get out of your book, either Courting the Dragon, Saving the Dragon, or the whole series in general?
Honestly, I just want the readers to be able to step into a different world for a little bit and experience something that none of us are going to experience being a princess, unless we've got like hidden royalty in the chat somewhere. None of us are really going to have that experience. None of us are going to, be able to step through, doorways into, completely different geographical locations. We're probably not going to see dragons in our lifetime. I just want readers to.
No,
Well, I mean, unless they're kimono dragons, but
I want to see dragons.
so I guess what I really wanted was to provide the reader with a little bit of magical escape, a little bit of adventure, a world that's not our own, and a little bit of romance with that, and in this book, a little bit of political intrigue. So
I think it's really hard nowadays too to find that nice balance and all of that stuff, right? Like finding a good amount of romance, good amount of political intrigue, adventure and action, and also magic. And I think the first book does that really well. So I'm really looking forward to the second one and seeing that same kind of mastery that you have with the first one throughout the course of the second. Also, I'm really excited to see about this academy, the academy, because I'm a big fan of magical schools. Like why not?
yeah, everybody's like, we want to see the academy, we want to see the academy, and the fact of the matter is, I'm going to tell you guys right now. The academy is visited in book 3 very briefly. What I will be doing eventually is writing some shorts that do actually take place at the academy and show off school life a little bit, that kind of rewind from book 3. I have no idea when those are going to come out, but the academy will mainly get shown off in the form of shorts and not so much the books, because I wasn't trying to write another Harry Potter. So, and that's kind of my fear with like magical boarding school type thing. I mean, it's more like magical college to be clear than like a boarding school. But so the academy will show up eventually in shorts. And yeah.
Is it people are mentioning Skyrim, and that was actually the thing that I was thinking about, was like, can at this academy, can people be shouted off of the edge of the cliff just in case? Because that is really my favorite pastime at any kind of.
Well, I mean, Melinda did have that wind push thing, so I guess theoretically she could push somebody off of a cliff with that particular spell. I never thought about that, but I mean, I guess Melinda could have done that if she, wasn't dead.
I'm looking at Kara says, I'm a princess of stench. And yes, she who must not be named doesn't own magic schools, right? I think
yeah, but they're so overdone. Like I beta read one like not even that long ago that was like magic boarding school. I really think after Harry Potter, that kind of genre kind of blew up a little bit, and it's just not something that I personally want to write a whole lot of. So.
Well, what does if it's in your head, what is the academy like, from at least your plans or anything like that? Like, what is the teaching like there? How do students learn? Is it a really, is it an exclusive place, or is it easier for people to get into?
Okay, so there's actually 3 schools at the There's three schools at the academy. First is the elementary level, and it's mostly the children of professors, and they also teach the kids from the local orphanage at that school, and they do that for free. That is a service that the academy provides. And then obviously they have a secondary school for those same students. And then the college, which is the actual academy, there's two types of students. One is the actual magical students who are there to become masters and graduate as masters. And the second is some wealthier nobles will send their students, their kids there to continue their education beyond like what their governess or instructors could provide, in more of like a traditional college sense. So there's really 2 courses of study. And they might learn a little bit about magic and how it works, but they don't necessarily have the aptitude. So that's the other thing. When you start school, you are tested for your aptitude, because anyone can learn magic, but some people are going to have a much easier time, and knowing your aptitude is going to change how the professors are going to teach you, and whether or not you have to do certain classes to fine-tune your ability to manipulate the energy flows and things like that. So honestly, for a thing I don't intend to like write a lot about. I know a lot about how the academy works. I know how their cafeterias work, which is really fun.
Okay. We're gonna talk about this. We need to talk in the best way possible about food, because your first book is littered with some of the best descriptions of food. And so no, let's talk about the cafeterias. I'm actually really intrigued now because I want to know how these cafeterias work.
Okay, so their cafeterias, they so when you go in, they have different lines for different things. But when you get there, there's basically a blackboard, right? And there's gold line squares, and the blackboard is written on every day by the cooks. And so you put your tray into this alcove, and you touch a square next to the written, like, chalk written thing that you want, and it then appears on your tray. And you can sit there and Salarath does this in a scene that I deleted from Finding the Dragon, where he sits there and like spams the bacon button in the staff break room. He like just spams the bacon button at breakfast. I cut that scene because I changed a few things about the start of the book. So, but I kept the scene, like I didn't, like, it's not going to be in the book, but like I kept it for my own, like, gratification. And he just sits there and like spams it.
Well, it's like this replicators in Star Trek, right?
Yeah,
it's coming from.
It seems exactly like Replicator. It's actually that they have all the food on like big platters and stuff in the kitchen, and so but they're like they're enchanted to these things. So when you click it, you are getting food actually transported from the platter to your tray. And there is a limited amount. So when they run out, that item will actually disappear from the blackboard.
And she sounds like a lot of fun. I think Kira said in there, and I hope that I'm pronouncing names right. Kira said that I like the idea of world building that never shows up in the story, and I think that 100% on point. Like, those things inform your writing, don't they? Would you say so?
Yeah, definitely. Like, there's a crap load of stuff about like dragon culture that's probably not going to show up in book 3, but it will definitely influence the way the characters are thinking and what they're doing in ways that you don't necessarily see. For sure, because like this book is very much human culture. Book 3, not so much. So, like, I feel like I'm hyping book 3 more than like the book that just released.
Well, but you have these things in your head, right? And actually, there's a question about book 3 in a second, sort of. And then also a question from Maeve: Is it? Do you pronounce the V or not? I'm curious about that. Hi, Maeve, by the way.
Maeva.
Maeva, gotcha. How many books do you think there will be in the series?
Oh, so Penelope's Dragon is a trilogy, like flat out, it's a trilogy. There will be a collection of Silurian shorts, is what I call them, and the first one is on my blog actually. And that collection will flesh out some of the folklore details of the world. It will also include some stuff like how Penelope met Master Goodleaf and things like that. I actually asked my Twitter, I think it was yesterday, hey, what do you guys want to see in the Silurian shorts? And unfortunately, most of the answers were like, everything! I'm like, okay, that doesn't help me narrow it down. But, yeah, so there's definitely... I gotta use the correct hand that's, like, in screen. There's definitely there's 3 books in this trilogy. Doesn't mean that I won't ever write anything else in this world, but this particular trilogy, this particular character arc is 3 books. Some people have expressed that they would like to see, like, Michael and Persia get their own book, or Tiffany and Eric get their own book. And I'm not gonna say that's never gonna happen, but I don't like I have a spreadsheet and it's not on the spreadsheet right
now. The holy spreadsheet.
Yeah, spreadsheet's ridiculous.
Let's see. DJ says, I know I'm poking into the 3rd book, but I dig Pen's progression. I know we can't have a definitive answer to the story, but it's nice to read her own agency. Does that keep going? So does she continue having agency in this and throughout?
She does. Now, I will say that book 3, Salarath is much more of a, like, co-main character than he was in the previous 2 books. We get to learn a lot more about his background, and it just, he was kind of lacking agency in the first book to a certain extent, and in the second book, it's better, but they definitely, like, he's definitely much more of a co main character in the third book, and they're not physically together for a good chunk of book three. So like their stories are happening like simultaneously until they link back up. So um, yeah, there's a lot of. I would say that most of the characters have a lot of their own agency in the third book. Is my opinion. Um, Penelope gets a little more roped in book two than she was in book one. She gets penned in, I guess, by circumstance a little more than she did in the first book.
Also, she's growing older and needing to become responsible for some of those like
Oh no, it's not that.
those royal things.
She's literally getting penned
Oh.
in,
Oh,
in a physical sense.
oh no. And let's see. So do you want to read? Like, do you want to continue reading the next section, or do you want some more questions?
Um,
Up to you.
yeah, I mean, we didn't talk about the food yet, but although my
Oh
husband,
yes, there's a lot of talk about the food. Greetings. I am a bard, and I saw this book title here, so here I am. Is this an instructional book?
uh, uh, no.
How would one court the dragon?
I mean, I guess the book could be titled "How Not to Court Your Dragon." If we're going for instructions. So
That's so funny. That is so funny. Yeah, actually, okay. So speaking of food, can we talk about food really quick
Yeah,
for just a second?
yeah, we know.
Not to make people hungry.
Okay.
Okay. So I know this now. I have to admit, this is a personal indulgence right here because I really did like reading the first one. I loved your description of food. I think food is one of those things that helps establish.
I was hungry a lot
Like,
when I read the first book.
Should be. That's awesome.
we were sitting in Panera for Nano. In my defense, like
It's one of
surrounded
those
by
things
food.
that like food is it establishes culture, right? Like when we
Right.
see what people eat, we know what they're able to plant, we know what the world has in it. And I say here, food is a surprisingly big part of Saving the Dragon, and I imagine it is in Courting the Dragon too. If you were going to make a cookbook addendum to the series, what recipes would Mary the cook put into it? Who I love. I love Mary.
Okay, so the lemon crumble cookies for sure, which are kind of like a lemony shortbread cookie. Definitely that would be in there. I do want to mention that the lemons are imported. I feel like that's an important detail. So they're not something that they're something that you would have to have money to access. I guess would be an important note. But they are imported from the north. It's a world building note. Probably the bread pudding. That is one of the desserts in book one. Maybe the fried cheese cubes from book two. Let's see what else. There was something
There are
else.
fried cheese cubes in book 2.
Yeah.
I am so excited for that.
There's also a cooked serpent in book two.
Is that how one courts the dragon?
No, and
different serpents then.
yeah.
Okay.
And then what else was there that was like really good? There's a few other like solstice treats that weren't directly featured that I would probably include. Like certain types of like mince pies and things like that. So I would say the food also is like fairly like I don't want to say British inspired exactly, but a lot of the like in my head a lot of the food is like British inspired. So yeah, that's probably where that's probably some of the things that I would include. Definitely the lemon crumble cookies, which
That sounds really good right now. Anything that's lemon, I'm excited about. But it's also delicacy there, right? Like, this also speaks back into, you're looking at a story that's also about class in its own regard. Whether you've got the royalty and they're mingling with the commoners. And Kira says, "I'm going to get painfully generic question. What's your writing routine look like?" It's an awesome question.
so me and routine are like the antithesis of each other. lately, what I've been doing is when I sign off of work, I sit down and I try to churn out at least 1,500 words for Baird Magic, which is book one of a different series, which will probably come out before Finding the Dragon. Not probably, it will, because it's half written, so it definitely will. So generally, I get off of work and then I sit down, I sit my butt in a chair, and I write until I have at least 1,500 words, and I do that pretty much every day. On the weekends, if I'm lucky, I might get 2 to 5K. If the muse is speaking, which it really is for this this other whip. So I'm really working on that. And what is with the chat? Like I say serpent, and everybody's like fixated now on the snakes. Like the snakes and the dragons are not related, and the dragon doesn't eat the snake. And like, look, it's a carnival food. Okay, like
a carnival. Eating snakes at a carnival sounds exciting.
It's like an exotic delicacy type thing that she's tricked into eating. She's not happy about it. So, yeah.
I like. And Abby says, "How do you balance a day job with writing?" Asking for a friend, aka myself, and I'm happy to hear this one too. I need this knowledge.
So Balance and I are also not good friends. I'm gonna be honest. I don't sleep a lot during the week. I crash and sleep about 12 hours, like one day a week on the weekend, and I probably sleep 2 to 4, sometimes 6 hours on a weeknight. But that's partly because my work schedule is really weird right now, which is partly my choice. Like I'm not blaming work. I do what I got to do because most of my team's in India, so I'm still trying to find balance and routine with everything. And honestly, my experience is that when I write books, and I actually finish books, I do it in like this frenzy of inspiration that lasts for about 30 days, and then and then I don't touch anything for a little while. So probably realistically, what's going to happen is I'm going to finish Baird Magic by July 15th, which is the target date for finishing that draft. Not giving you a release date because, well, we saw how well that worked with Courting the Dragon 5 years ago, so not giving a release date. But my target for being able to draft is July 1st.
You have some fans right now, like Michelle, and DJ are both like Goldilocks book. Like you've got people who are excited about that, which is awesome.
Yeah, Baird Magic is the Goldilocks book. Which thank you for the title, Michelle.
Was Michelle responsible for that?
Yeah, well, she said Bear Magic originally is like a pun on Twitter. I'm like, you know what? We're gonna go with Baird Magic. So there you go. That is in fact the title. And so so I'll probably get done with that on the 15th as planned, and then I probably will like not do anything for like 2 weeks, like writing wise, to kind of like recover and recharge before I jump into first round revisions. So
is every book in that series going to have a pun in the title?
No.
Could book 2 be Grisly Circumstances?
So no, book 2 is actually called Cursed Magic.
Okay, cool.
I know all the titles. Like I know all the titles. My cover artist knows all the titles. I have not told him about the Christmas novella yet. So, Judah, if you're in the chat, there's a Christmas novella. So that series is going to be kind of in development parallel to wrapping up this one, which is like sounds like a bad idea, but when the muse is like, you're writing this book and I'm not giving you a choice, so we have kind of like an agreement. I can work on finding like 1 day a week as long as I'm making progress on the other one, and that's kind of where we're at on that. And that one is like the first half is with alpha readers right now. So I'm getting some feedback on it, mostly positives. So I'm feeling like, tentatively, I'm going to say Baird Magic will be out this year, which is a scary thing to say because I took 6 years to write Courting the Dragon. So, but my, Deirdre's Baird Magic, Bared, and the pun is that there's a bear shifter. So, That's the pun. So back to my routine. So the way that I have found works best for me for writing is to write the blurb, which sounds really bass-ackwards, but write the blurb, write the first draft, do one round of revision. I'm adding alpha readers in this time, but do one round of revision, beta readers, edits, editor, publish. Well, format and all that stuff. But that is my routine going forward is to do it that way. So really only 2 rounds of revisions, and I'm going to really hold myself to that because I am one of those people that could go down the revision black hole and stay there forever. So, which is kind of what happened with cording, to be honest.
Well, that's the curse of the writer's eye, right? Like it will never be final. It will never be done. It is simply good enough.
Yeah.
And you know, you could always look back at. I think I saw something the other day that said, if you really want to find a typo in your book, all you have to do is just publish it, and then about 6 weeks later, open up to a random page, and you'll find it.
Oh yeah. Oh, so you want to hear something really horrible? If anyone has an early copy of Saving the Dragon, I uploaded the unedited, like I had gotten the edits back from an editor. I uploaded the unedited version. So the first years, nobody said anything. Years. So the current version is edited. I believe there's a missing quotation mark somewhere that was pointed out to me recently that I gotta go in and fix. But as far as issues go in a self-published book, I'll take a missing quotation mark.
That's gonna happen. You find I was mentioning to somebody the other day. The last line of a book that is a New York Times bestseller. The last line had a typo in it. I was like, come on, you guys. There's 2 lines in the book that have to be perfect. First one to the last one. They didn't get this one right.
Oh, was that that was a Dresden book, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
I was like, oh.
I was looking at formatting and with Justify, you'll get weird spacing with words. And I was looking at one that was really bothering me in courting. And then I was flipping through. I had a copy of Eye of the World, and I found the most atrocious spacing in that book. And that went through that went through a whole bunch of people, and they put it to print like that. So I'm like, you know what? If they can put that to print with that atrocious spacing, my not nearly as atrocious spacing is fine.
Well, you are also, you are responsible for all of these things. You're responsible for the writing, the editing, the revising, the structuring, the marketing. It's going to be understandable these things exist, and yet your first book in particular, an immensely clean book. And I was actually commenting on that with my wife as I was reading it. I was blown away by just how. I caught nothing. There was nothing in there that I saw that jumped out to me. I was like, huh. And it's something I think you should be really proud about.
Yeah, I had to re-edit Saving the Dragon. So I know you're not supposed to edit your own stuff, but to be fair, it had been 6 years. So I had to re-edit it, and it's basically an unknown book at that point when you have looked at it in 6 years. So the version that's out now is I completely re-edited, unfortunately myself, with some help from Grammarly, but it is vastly improved from what it was when it was initially published. I had no idea what I was doing in 2015, just so everybody knows. This book, this has been professionally copy edited. This has been through a couple rounds of beta reading. This is not the same amateur game that the original release of book 1 was. Not even close. And my next book is going to be, again, I'm upping the ante in terms of the amount of editing, proofreading, yada 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 yada. Because I can afford to do that now. That was something that I could not afford in 2015.
Of course.
So
of course, and it's always good too in that case that you're supporting other people who are freelancers and things like that too in the process.
Yeah.
Do you want to? I was going to say, I know that you want at some point to do your giveaway, and it's about halfway through. And I know you mentioned that. Do you want to continue your reading and then do the giveaway, or do you want to do the giveaway?
Let's do the giveaway. Because cool. I think that's what a lot of people kind of want to see. So we're gonna flip to the giveaway. So there were a lot of entries. And we're gonna see if I can pull off clicking this and doing sound effects at the same time. So what I'm going to do really quick is I'm going to shuffle the list like 3 times, just to like, so nobody can claim any like bias or anything. And here we go. I know you can't hear the sound of trance.
It's okay.
All right,
As long as they can, that's what matters.
so our grand prize winner is Penelope Daniels on Instagram. So congratulations.
Penelope. And what a fitting name.
Yeah, you can't make this stuff up. So for those who don't recall, this is the grand prize, which is the plushie, the signed copy of the first book, signed copy of the second book, bookmarks, magnet, and coffee mug. So that is the grand prize. So now we will spin for first prize. So, Words of a Nerd on Twitter. So, I don't know, like, I don't have everybody's, like, real names. So, that is our first prize winner, which, as a reminder, first prize is the 2 signed books, the mug, and the magnet, and the bookmarks is the first place. Oops. So, now we will go to second place, of which there are 2 winners for second place. So, here we go. I hope this is doing... Yeah, okay, it's putting them in order. Okay. You know what I haven't done? I haven't actually used, like, any of the sound effects till now. So, AJ Knox 9 on Twitter is our first second prize winner.
You have this is all set up so wonderfully.
And second place, I don't think it has a picture, but it is the mug and the signed copy of Courting the Dragon. So we're kind of stepping down a little bit. All right, our second place winner
I'm watching too.
is Kira the Wind 1 on Twitter. So that is our second place winner. This is going to take a while. All right. So next we have 3 third place winners who are getting a signed copy of the book, the bookmarks, and the magnet. So we're dropping the coffee mug at this point. So, all right. First third place winner is Spicer Gerard from Twitter. That like clapping sound effect, by the way, is from the website. That's not my soundboard. So that is the first third place winner, right? Yes. So the second third place winner Everlasting Monty on Instagram. And our final third place winner is... I really hope that sound effect is in time with everything. Stacy Everon from Instagram is our... So now, guess what? There's more, because there's also 5 ebook winners. I did this to myself. All right, here we go. 5 ebook winners. I really hope these people are all continental US. Talassian Knights on Twitter, who I believe is Abby in the chat.
Yeah. Is that?
Yeah, I believe
Let's
so.
see. That's the first name that I actually no, I knew Kira. Yeah, is that Abby? That's Abby.
Yeah. So that's
Okay.
our first ebook winner. And now our second ebook winner. I'm gonna be really busy going to the post office. Is Ristic Writer on Twitter, who I think might have already bought the book, so we'll arrange something there.
You might need to pull another one later.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I might have to like send her some bookmarks or something instead.
Abby, yes.
We'll figure it out. So that was ebook number 2, right?
Yes.
Okay. So ebook number 3. Down the Lane Books on Twitter. So ebook number 4.
I love to watch the spin.
Emmeline Strange from Twitter. That was 4, right?
Yeah, that was 4. I think you got one more.
Yeah, one more.
I was not a math person.
Okay, so that's the same person, but they entered on Instagram. So I'm gonna spin that one again.
But you can't give 2 ebooks to the same person?
I mean, wouldn't work very well, would it? Oh, I didn't take you out.
Oh, me? Wait. Okay. So,
I forgot.
so in that case, am I allowed to give it to someone in the chat?
Yeah, you can do that.
So I saw earlier that I want to see who the first one somebody said. Let's see. Let me go back. It was me. I think Kira had mentioned, Kira Fisher had mentioned that she hadn't entered. Does she have a copy of the book? Do they have a copy of the book? I should say they am. Sorry.
I don't think so.
Well, in that case, I think that's who I would like to give it to.
Okay, well, Carrie, you just lucked out. All right. So that so that concludes the giveaway portion of today's.
Hey, that's awesome.
Today's programming.
No, it's really cool actually. How did you get those plushies? Were they plushies that you had made for us, or
that's what I wanted to open and I couldn't remember. So if you follow me on Twitter, I had a tweet earlier. I was lying in bed and I thought of something that I should open in the browser, and then I couldn't remember what it was when I got up from my nap. I remember what it was now. Hold on. 1 second. It was the it was the shop for the plushies. That's exactly what it was. So let me flip back here. So the plushies are from Dragon Lane Studio. Not to show off how expensive that plushie is or anything, but they have some really cute dragon themed stuff in their shop. They got like this like child's backpack thing and the plushie and just like eggs and just so some really cute stuff. And honestly, the quality on the plushie is just so good. Like honestly, it's fantastic. So this was what I wanted to show
That's
everybody.
So fun.
Yeah.
Look at the knight's helmet and everything.
And then the mugs, I should let's go to Twitter really quick. The mugs I got from Did I not? What?
Right there with Michelle, they're super adorable. They are. So is this a private creator who's doing them, or like not a company per se, but like a it's an Etsy, so it's like somebody making them, hand making them?
Yeah. So
So cool.
so Sky Kelrose, and that's her website, but I'll go to her Etsy really quick. Um, maybe. So she made the magnets and the um coffee mugs and the bookmarks are all from Sky Kelrose. Um, Gee, that blue tit looked an awful lot like something that Michelle would have asked for. uh, so yeah,
I'm sorry if I'm looking up. I'm actually looking at as you scroll through them. I'm like my chin is right here.
yeah, it's yeah. So that's yeah. So that's where everything came from, and that was what
That's
I
so
wanted to open.
cool. I mean, you've made a consistent habit of supporting other creators in the process of this too, right? Like it's you're putting this book out, but it's also like, oh, I'm getting someone who creates and hand makes things. I think that's really awesome.
Yeah,
Congrats to everybody who got those too. That's super neat.
yeah. I just want to say that I nobody like sponsored the giveaway. I purchased these things for the giveaway, so like I just don't want there to be any misconception about that. But yeah, definitely if you are disappointed that you didn't get Dragon plushie and you have the coin to burn on it, I highly recommend Dragonlane Studios. Everything was prompt, on time, quality's great, and Sky Colors is just amazing as far as like she also do I have it in front of me here? One second. Do I not have it in front of me? I thought I had. She also does those little cutout like bookmarks like the blue tit bird. She actually sent me some for Penelope and Salarath in dragon form, and I don't have them in front of me, but just super awesome, super sweet, great to work with. So highly recommend all of the creators that I got these awesome giveaway prizes from. So
You absolutely smash it when it comes to giveaways. You really do. And I think it was how many unique entries did you have?
So there was 70 some unique entries, and then the total number of entries, because you could comment to get an additional entry. So the total number of entries was 101.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's a huge deal.
So that was definitely more than I was expecting, and yeah. So thank you everyone who entered the giveaway. Those of you who won, congratulations, and yeah, I'm going to screen cap the results right now because I do not trust my computer.
Hey, I didn't write anything down, so I hope I wasn't supposed to. All of a sudden, it'd have to be like an honor system.
There's a results window for
Okay.
the drawing, so I just screen
As far
capped
as
it.
co-hosts go, I did a terrible job with that one. It's like
We're good. We're good. Okay. Do we? So okay. So do we want to go back to the reading then, and I will continue from where we left off?
absolutely. Why not? I know there are people who like really wanted to keep hearing stuff, so go for it.
Okay, I will continue from where I left off then. Um, I'm so awkward. Okay, here we go. The continuation of chapter 1. Um, so there's actually, Rance, there's a question in the chat. I'm gonna answer really, really quick. So if you wanted
Go
to
for it.
start reading my stuff, I would definitely start with Saving the Dragon, which you can find on any of um, uh, the all the major platforms. And then I also put the books to read um, link in the chat as well. I always start there.
Ethan's got it there.
The other
It's awesome.
the other place that you can start is if you go to my website. If you just want a taste of what I do, there's a link on the homepage to my short story, which is titled "The First," and it's a kind of a background story to some of the mythology of the world. So that would be the other place I would suggest. Okay, so continuing with chapter 1 where we left off earlier, because I'm so scattered. So all right, here we go. When she reached her rooms, Penelope snapped an order at a passing servant that she was not to be disturbed before slamming the door to her sitting room shut behind her. The princess tore through that room and into her bedchamber. For several seconds she stood in the doorway facing her bed, just willing her breathing and heart rate to slow. She needed to calm down before she could perform any magic. Closing her eyes, she breathed deeply in and out. Once she was sure that her rage wouldn't be a factor, she turned around. The dragon language's strange words rolled off her tongue as she muttered her ring's activation phrase. Instead of stepping into her sitting room, Penelope stepped into a richly appointed study. Although it was summer, a fire crackled merrily in the hearth. Located in the mountains, Steelborg Castle remained somewhat cool and drafty well into the summer. Parchment and books covered the big ornate desk in the center of the room as always, but the seat behind it was empty. Penelope was just about to turn and sweep from the room when a noise drew her attention back to the hearth. An arm dangled over the side of one of the plush wingbacks by the fire, a book hanging precariously from the tips of its fingers. All the anger and pain in Penelope's heart melted. She tiptoed across the room, slipping the volume from the mage's grasp as she rounded his chair. Salarath sprawled in it, his long legs stretched out before him. His elegant robes were rumpled, his dark hair was in a state of disarray, and a shadow of stubble shaded his strong jaw. Long dark eyelashes fluttered against his cheeks. He looked so amazingly young and vulnerable in his sleep. Seeing him like this, it was nearly impossible to believe that he was actually a dragon hybrid with hundreds of years under his belt. Penelope watched him for several long moments, torn about waking him until she saw the corner of his mouth turn up just a tiny bit. Shaking her head and fighting back a smile, Penelope leaned over and pressed a kiss to his lips. A strong hand came up to tangle in her hair and hold her head in place as the wizard deepened the kiss. When they parted, Penelope found herself staring into a pair of eyes the color of molten silver. "How long were you awake?" "How long were you standing there?" She laughed and kissed him again. It was several minutes before either of them had the free lips to speak again. "To what do I owe this pleasant surprise?" "Can't a woman with magical means visit the man she loves?" "Yes, but this particular woman is supposed to be visiting with her father." When she groaned, Salarath sat up and pulled her down into the chair with him, tucking her head into the crook of his shoulder. "That bad, was it?" "Worse." "What happened?" Penelope realized her heart was hammering with fear. If she told Salarath about the fight with her father, she'd find out if his opinion on marriage had changed. If it hadn't, she was terrified their relationship wouldn't survive the discussion in light of her father's demands. "He wasn't impressed with the Academy's commendations." Salarath's arms tightened around her briefly, a small squeeze of understanding. She waited for him to say something, but when he remained silent, she knew he expected there was more to the story. Penelope also knew she was squirming, but the gentle circle of his arms prevented her from jumping up. She had the sneaking suspicion he could hear her heart pounding. Not for the first time, she made a mental note to ask about the acuity of Dragon's hearing at a more opportune moment. "Father wants me to get engaged." The crackle of the fire filled the silence for several long moments before Penelope added, "Before the new term begins." "I see. He's invited some suitors to the summer festival in Celeria. He wants me to give them a chance. He thinks you aren't an option for my future." She didn't dare pull away to look up at him, and she didn't need to. Penelope could feel the tension in the muscles of his arms, hear it in his breathing. "Penelope. I know we haven't really talked about this, but Penelope." Salarath shifted, sitting up more and grasping her shoulders to hold her out so they could look at each other. His gray eyes had darkened to the color of cold iron. "We knew this time would come." "No," she whispered, tears leaking from her eyes. Her tone rose, approaching hysteria. No, it hasn't. I won't do it. I won't. He can pull me out of the academy. I don't care." A low, rattling sort of rumble rose from deep within the wizard's chest. The princess cut off her pleading, staring wide-eyed. She'd only ever heard such a sound from Salarath while in his dragon form in the dungeon. It had been so easy until now, she realized, to separate that experience out from their everyday relationship. It was so easy to forget that he was more than a man. "Penelope, you have a bright future ahead of you." Salarath's voice was hoarse, but his eyes practically glowed as they bored into her. "You'll graduate from the academy, you'll marry a wonderful man who—" "Penelope, listen to me." She shook her head. "No, listen to me. You'll marry a wonderful man who'll love you more than life itself. You'll be happy, happier than I could ever make you." "That's not true!" Penelope was sobbing now, her eyes stinging, red and puffy as the tears streamed down her cheeks. "It's not!" Salarath's jaw tightened. Penelope's pain hit him like a knife to the heart, but he forced himself to keep looking her in the eye. This was for the best, even if the grief killed him. He forced his expression to harden. He glared at her, his gaze steely. He lifted her gently but firmly, setting her on her feet as he stood. Go home. Salaраth, go home, Penelope. The command was accompanied by a shove towards the door. He had to get her out of here before he lost his nerve. Don't come here again. But Salaраth, go! The word came out as a roar, the angry, wounded roar of a dragon. Penelope's heart froze and she shrank away from him. They stared at each other for a moment longer. Salarath's heart broke all over again at the fear he saw in her beautiful eyes. Finally, his princess bolted. The words to her ring came out of her lips in a rush, and she was gone. The wizard stood there, for he knew not how long, staring at the empty space where his love had vanished. His eyes filled with tears until he couldn't see the doorway anymore. Scene change. The little man walked through the halls of power and wished he could savor it. Leon Arel wasn't born to power, position, or prestige. The youngest son of a poor cobbler with too many brats to feed, he had grown up scrabbling and scraping, clawing past his siblings and schoolmates to find that thin ray of sunlit hope at the top of the dog pile. Now, after so many years of scheming and hard work, he was really here, walking the halls of Solaria's great marble and granite palace as though he belonged. Getting here wasn't easy. Every moment was a held breath, a prayer to gods he didn't believe in. One misstep, one wrong word or overzealous use of magic, and Arel could find himself as a rotting decoration on top of the city's parapets. The mere thought made him clutch his throat protectively. He gulped, suppressing his nerves and glancing around to ensure no one had observed his momentary lapse. There were those yet among the king's retainers who still didn't trust Arel, including the crown prince. Now was not the time to ponder the risks. Arel was now firmly ensconced as the king's most trusted advisor, and phase 2 of his plan was finally in motion. Arel found the king in his study, poring over a stack of documents. The advisor frowned for a moment before remembering himself and pasting on a smile. "How did it go, your majesty?" King Halberd looked up from his reading and grunted. He removed his spectacles and rose to pace. "About as well as I expected. My daughter is stubborn." A spike of fear ran through Arel. The plan would not go smoothly if they couldn't get the princess to cooperate. "She fancies herself in love already." Halberd heaved a long-suffering sigh. "If I just picked one for her, she would never forgive me. Romantic that she is, she expects her heart to be part of the equation." "Nobility rarely marries for anything other than financial or political gain," Arel reminded him. "None of the neighboring kingdoms have eligible sons. Solaria is in a stable place politically. The crown and the Eakson family are both financially solid, even profitable." He shrugged. "I have no compelling reason to force her into what others might see as an advantageous marriage." He paused, clearly considering his next words carefully. "Still, I want to see her taken care of. Even if she doesn't pick a suitor before the start of the new term, maybe her eyes will be open to a possibility other than that blasted wizard. The princess most certainly would have a betrothed before the start of the new quarter. Arel would see to that. But for now, he would let the king believe as he wished. The wheels were already in motion." And that is the end of chapter 1.
Awesome reading, by the way.
Well,
And you is. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
I say, is Aurel? Is it Aurel?
Yeah, Aurel. So
I believe you mentioned them at some point recently about like how much you liked them. Is that
so
the character you really
so
like?
he's the antagonist that I at least sympathize with. And that's not the original spelling of his name, but then I realized that the original spelling looked a little too close to oral. It would sound too, people could mispronounce it, and I'm like, yeah, we can't, yeah.
You know what? It's always good though to catch yourself like that. Be like, you know what? I know people's minds, and I know how they work.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Not giving them this.
It's a shame I didn't catch the acronym for Saving the Dragon. We don't use the acronym for that one.
We say saving and courting.
Yeah.
Saving and courting.
Well, I do refer to Courting the Dragon as CTD sometimes. And I do refer to Finding the Dragon as FTD. But I never, ever refer to Saving by the acronym. Just for the record.
You have to do it with a capital S, lowercase t, capital D.
Yeah. Let's see, Abby said in the chat, "I like your writing style. It's very clean." Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
It's accessible too, right? There's not it's the dialogue is smooth, it flows. There's not unnecessary words in it, which I think is something that a lot of people can admire as writers.
I mean, so I can be kind of okay, I like my extra words. Actually, the editor kind of like slapped me on the wrist a little bit. You don't need just here. You don't need really here. You don't need, and in some places in the dialogue, I told the editor to go stuff it, because in the dialogue I'm like, that's how they talk. Like, I'm sorry,
Right.
but I took all the edits elsewhere that took out extra words.
First thing it says, who knew book 2 would go to X-rated with the
It's not. That's
no,
okay.
with the name.
Well, that's my husband, for those who don't know. And he's being a butthead, so...
That's what husbands have to do. That's what my wife's like that too. She's like, hey, I have to keep you on your toes.
Yeah, he's like that. So, well, now that we've finished chapter 1, I know we're a little bit all over the place, but I guess we could go back into Ask Me Anything. If people have questions now in light of the chapter reading.
Absolutely. Why not? Let's do it. Love it. Yeah, if there's anybody has any questions in the chat or anything like that you want to ask Sarah, go for it. And this time I said Sarah and not Michelle. Michelle's like, wait, I didn't know I was supposed to answer questions. I can, but I didn't know I was supposed to.
Yeah.
To start you out, Sarah, is there anything that you want to tell us about the book? Like some of your favorite parts about writing it, some of the more challenging aspects about writing it?
My probably the most challenging aspect of it would be that, honestly, the stupid plot killed me for 3 major revisions, and the villains even are not the same as they were. Like, Aurel and Leander are the original villains of the story, but like their relationship is totally different from what it was in the original version. They weren't related in the original draft, in the original outline. Aurel had a boyfriend in the original that Leander basically kidnapped and used as leverage to make him do a lot of the things that he did in the book. And that got cut, partly because it didn't seem like a good enough motivation initially, so by making them what their relationship is now, I feel like Aurel's motivation early on makes more sense than it did in the original draft, because Whitfield didn't get kidnapped until like at least halfway through the book, and it's like, well, then why did he get involved in the this whole plot to begin with? And so there was so originally, like, Whitfield and Leander were cousins, and there was this whole, like, it didn't make a lot of sense. I also combined some characters that I originally had, like, multiple side characters, so yeah, so that whole thing just is different.
Abby says, "Do you have any sources for your ideas that you frequently use?" And I love Abby's always like Abby's got the best questions, because like I made a joke about her earlier, but Abby is a consummate world builder, and so like I'm so glad that she's here, because those are some great questions. Like, yeah, where do you get some of these ideas? Where do they pop from?
Well, so Saving the Dragon was originally the characters and the places were originally things I had developed for a D&D campaign, and so the kind of traditional, like, Dungeons and Dragons-esque world building played into the initial development, and then obviously when I realized I'm not writing a D&D campaign anymore, I'm writing a novel, I had to rip out a whole bunch of stuff from D&D, right? So what happened was I had to go back and then fill in the gaps where I had taken out, world building that didn't belong to me. So I ripped out these things that didn't belong to me, and I had to go back and then fill in, like, Salarath originally was a silver dragon in, like, a D&D silver dragon, which they tend to shapeshift into humans and, stuff like that. So I had to then backfill, well, he's not a D&D silver dragon, so why the hell does he live with people? So I had to go, so a lot of the world building for this series is me asking myself a whole bunch of questions to figure out how to fill the holes that were created by ripping, the D&D setting out of my world, basically. So that's where a lot of the inspiration came originally for this series. Now, more generally, I do take a lot of inspiration from fairy tales, from it. Yeah, I also have a tendency, like, when I find like a like niche genre I really enjoy, I will almost always end up starting a draft of something in that genre. So like, I have a draft that I do intend to finish. That's like lit RPG, for example. That I have every intention of finishing. Or I have the like I'm trying to think of a good example. So I mean, inspiration was also taken from sources within the genre. I read a lot, and a lot of times it's like, well, I see what they did there. It was kind of cool, but I think I could do it better. And so that's kind of like some of the whips I have in the spreadsheet are, let me see if I can do this genre better than that thing I read over there.
Well, there's a lot of, well, I think in my review of this I mentioned it was like your first book reminded me of Hans Christian Andersen meets Tangled, which I love Tangled, so that's a compliment. It's not a
I think that's a good movie.
It's phenomenal. Let's see. Abby says tabletop RPG campaigns are a great source of inspiration. Is it J.M. Sooth? I want to make sure I get it right, buddy. Speaking as a kind of writer, do you also start with bullet points, then wake up like 9 hours later with an incomprehensible mess?
Well, okay. I do have a tendency to just like info dump random ideas into a file, and then I do have to go back later and be like, what the hell did I mean? Which is part of the reason why I don't outline anymore, because I would be so vague about certain things that when I would get to that part of the outline, I had no idea what what I was going for. And so what I'm finding now is I write down everything that I think I know about the book, and it is an incomprehensible mishmash. And then I write the blurb. And my goal then is, even if I don't use all the stuff that I wrote initially, I'm writing to the blurb so that I end up with a book that fits that blurb that I wrote. Now, the blurb might get tweaked as if the book, decides to like take a random right turn at Albuquerque. But I'm writing to a target rather than like following a path, if that makes sense. I guess I could like let me pull Scrivener over to the other window here.
Are we gonna see plannings here?
Yes.
I actually love seeing people's process because it's always so different and personal to that person. There is no one way that works better than the other. It's just what works best for themselves.
Yeah.
Themselves. Right?
I'm going to show you the planning for the entire. I'm not going to let you read it all, but I am going to show you the page that is the planning for the entire Woodland Curses series. So this is my planning for an entire series. That's it. So this is some random stuff about like characters in the first two books. This is the blurb for Bared Magic. This is the blurb for Cursed Magic. I think this one's going to be called Fractured Magic. This blurb needs work. And then Patchwork Magic is the last one. Oh, and then Lady Werewolf is the Christmas novella. None of y'all saw that. But that's what my planning looks like.
They're going to go through now, and they're going to, like, slow down the video to see it.
Yeah, so that's what... Oh, that's weird. You're, like, frozen.
Me?
Yeah, I fixed it. I fixed it. I had to, like, focus Discord.
I can just look thoughtful the entire time if you need me to.
So that's what my planning looks like for the entire series, and I'll make notes as like I think of cool things, but for the most part, what I'm finding is that just like getting the initial ideas out, crafting the blurbs, and then targeting them is what is working for me. And I'm halfway through the draft for Bared Magic already, and I started it like the last week in May, I believe. So we're in like nano territory in terms of like how fast I'm writing this thing. And Saving the Dragon also, like, I had world building notes. I had characters. I did not have a plot, man. When you get to that one point where it seems like, oh, they're gonna like, do this thing and their plan's gonna work, and then it just like totally backfires. That was me going, oh crap, I'm gonna end the book too early. How do I monkey wrench this? That's literally what happened. So I'm finding that that's just very much more my process. I'm not a total pantser, but I'm a pantser. In contrast, I do have a book that is 100% outlined. It's a kind of a Little Mermaid retelling. It's 100% outlined. It's a very detailed outline. I'm going to attempt to write it the way that I outlined it. We'll see what happens there. But that one, I need to find me a Danish historian before I can like finish that one.
Well, I'm sure there's thousands of those just laying around that you can easily reach out to, right? Can you tag Danish historian on Twitter and like get somebody?
Well, I specifically need someone with knowledge of Danish naval history.
I'm doing hashtag Danish naval. I almost wrote NAVEL naval history. That is not a tag, so you should create it. Just letting you know. Let's see. Abby says, and yes, Abby did ask this earlier about like, do you know what the dragon language sounds like?
It's very, I would say, guttural. It's not. So their mouths don't work the way that ours do. So they have a very limited range of motion compared to us, and a lot more of their sounds are made by shaping the tongue. And so, and there's more, there's rumbling and grunting that a human can kind of mimic to a point of being understandable, but it's not true to the dragon language, which is another reason why true dragons don't like hybrids, because they had to bastardize the language basically to be able to speak it in their human form. So yeah, I haven't done a full conlang for it, to be honest, and I'm going to do more of that for book 3 simply because there's a lot of freaking dragons in book 3. Okay, we're gonna get like aerial battles and dragon politics and all kinds of like good stuff in book 3. There's more like broad scope world building in book 3 because the book's kind of, this wasn't intentional, but like, so book 1 kind of really only takes place in this one castle, right? Book 2 takes place in this like one city for the most part, and then book 3 is going to be like the whole freaking country. So like the size and scope of the world gets bigger with each book, and then the size and scope of the conflict gets bigger with each book. So I'm going to do more like language building, I think, for book 3. We're also getting a map with book 3.
Maps.
Yeah, so I commissioned Dewi. For those who are on Twitter are familiar with
maps are
at
gorgeous.
Dewi Writes. He makes amazing. He did the map in Michelle's book, The Fires of Treason. So if you want to see like an example of what he's done, that's a great place to look because that's a great map. Anyway, he's fantastic, and his name looks like Dewey. It's not pronounced Dewey. It's Dewi. It's Welsh. He broke the internet one day when he informed us all we were pronouncing his name wrong. He was very sweet about it. And then now he's like doing pronunciation videos like all the time. People are like, "You pronounce what?" So, yeah. So his maps are fantastic. So I commissioned a map for that, and then also for side note, I've had some character art commissioned. You know what? Let me pull up the character art. That would be a good.
May I actually ask a question of you in the meantime while you're pulling it up? I've seen Abby mention it before. You've talked about it. What is a conlang?
Constructed language.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Let me, when I write and I construct a language, as long as it's got apostrophes in it, that's what I know.
Yeah, so
that's all. Words with apostrophes.
So I'm gonna pull up some character art really quick. So so this is some character art of Penelope at the Academy. This was done by Judah Lamy, aka @Glint of Mischief on Twitter. Oh no, the other one's not in the right folder. Oh no. I am not prepared. Um, anyway, where did it go? Um, there's a point to this. The fact that I can't find this now is like really, really frustrating. Um, oh, there it is.
We can always like what do they call it? What do they call it when you like if
Here we go.
you,
So then
you
he also did this one from it, which is a scene from the first book. Um, so he's doing the covers for the Woodland Curses series. So just a so this is
one
character.
of her reading is absolutely gorgeous.
So
Wow.
yeah, I've had some other character art done. These are among my favorites, honestly, and which is why when I reached out, I was so excited when he said yes. When I reached out, like, do you want to do the covers for this series? There's 4 books, and here's the motif, and so that's pretty cool. So just want to share that character art.
If I need to ask for as one D&D player to another, if Penelope was a D&D character, which was she for one?
She was she was an NPC. But back in the day, so this was okay. So this is when I was still playing second edition. First of all, which is
Thaco.
Oh man,
right there.
Thaco. My nephew wanted to play recently with a system with Thaco, and I'm like, oh hell no, I'm not playing it through Thaco.
Don't you love your battles and they take 17 hours?
Oh gosh, no. So this was in second edition, and I back then did full character sheets for my NPCs because I am a masochist like that. So somewhere in this house, they're in this house somewhere. There's a full character sheet for Penelope. There's a full character sheet for Melinda, who was half drow in the original D&D version.
Makes sense.
Man, her backstory was actually more messed up in the in the D&D version than what made it in the book. So she actually had it worse than what the book portrays. So yeah, and then Salarath had a full character sheet plus for his human form plus like the stats for the dragon and everything. So yeah, no, every single one of them was an NPC, including Arel. Arel was in the original D&D campaign, and if you had a rogue in the party, when you were getting the quest from the king, his advisor would pull your rogue aside and be like, "Hey, you steal me this magic book, and I will pay you XYZ." And the thing is, the book was a trap, and if you opened it, you blow your whole party up. So because that's one of the things I love doing as a DM is I will give certain knowledge to certain people, but that the whole party, and it's up to them whether or not to share it with the party, that they know this thing. So like it would be up to the rogue to tell the party, hey, I got this side gig, and I gotta get this book, and well, so I know my players, they would have blown themselves up. My players at the time would have blown themselves up. That's okay.
Midori says, "Will book 3 be much bigger?"
It will. Yes. So, book 1 was about 54K, which Kobo says 51. Kobo's lying. But they're estimating it. But it's about 40. It's about 54. Book 2 is is a little over 75, and then book 3, I'm guesstimating will be between 80 and 85. So it will be a much more like meaty novel than the first 2 books were, because there's a whole heck of a lot that happens in this book. And book 2, I think I said this, largely exists so that book 3 can exist. Like, I mean, I love book 2 now, but when I went into writing it, I was writing it so that I could get to the cool stuff in book 3. Because I have to get the characters from point A to point B. I love the story now, but it was a journey to kind of get there, if that makes sense.
I actually had here. And I know you mentioned cutting something earlier, being the bacon button. Which, if the bacon button doesn't show up somewhere, I'm going to be sad. Was there anything you had to cut from this book that you really miss, like that you realized didn't service the story, even though it was something that you really loved?
So I miss most of Whitfield's scenes. So he was originally Arel's boyfriend, as I mentioned. He does still exist as like a suitor and a like a viscount, like in the court. But he listen, this man loves his food, and all of his scenes, like all of his scenes, involve him like talking about you know, like there's this great scene I cut where he's pulling the future crown princess out of her shell by talking about like these desserts that his father's chef can come up with because she's very shy. So he's like pulling her out by talking about food, and I don't know. I just love that scene. But there was a whole like picnic that I cut because like I'm sitting there writing this. I'm like, this sounds like a freaking Regency romance. I'm not writing a Regency romance. I'm just going to cut this entire thing. But the consequence of that was that I lost that scene with Whitfield. But also like when I took Whitfield out, he when I made him not a main character anymore, there wasn't any reason to keep his scenes. They didn't add anything like they would have. So I kind of miss him. I would like to use him later. Still, yeah. That's pretty much.
I was gonna say, do you have any plans? And I know you mentioned doing shorts. Do you have any plans that maybe he'll show up in a short somewhere?
Maybe I don't know I don't know what he would be up to necessarily. But I don't want to say like no, I'll never write a short featuring Whitfield because I might because I just genuinely love him because he's a genuinely nice character, which is so funny because he was dating the villain of the series, right? But he's like this genuinely nice character who is just like when he in the original draft when he realized what was really going on, he was freaking appalled by what was going on and the fact that he'd been a pawn in it in the original draft. So I don't know, he's just a really sweet character and I love him, and I wish that I didn't have to cut him, but I kind of did in order to make the plot work. The original draft did not work; it was very broken. So that would be something I regret that I had to cut.
Midori mentions that they have an RL2 in their book.
Yeah, so Arel is my character's last name. His name is Leon Arel, and he is a wizard who specializes in a certain type of magic that I'm not going to share because I think that would be a big spoiler. And yeah, he's one of the two antagonists. I don't think it would be a spoiler to say that he is the uncle of the other antagonist, though. So he's Leander's uncle.
Okay. For a minute, I was about to say, Melinda?
No. No.
Do we? I'm going to ask a personal question here. This is for me, and you might easily be able to say, Rance, you're going to have to find out on your own. Okay. Is Melinda ever mentioned again from Saving the Dragon?
Well, I mentioned, so there's the witch cliff jumping incident that gets mentioned in the first chapter, but Melinda has not made a reappearance.
Is that a Melinda has not made a reappearance, wink wink, or Melinda has not made a reappearance?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what happened to Melinda. I don't know. Beyond she fell off the cliff, I don't have any answers for you. I can't tell you that they never found her body.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
I dig it. That's a good answer. Thank you.
Yep.
So those were the majority of the questions that I had for you today. Is there anything you want to share with us, like places people can get the book? Anything like that just in case anybody wasn't here before that they can get now. Because I mean, hey, you know what? It's release day. If you haven't gotten the book, you gotta get the book, you guys.
So okay, I have some books to read links. So if you literally do bookstoread.com and then / the name of either book, you will get a page here that has all the links on where to buy it. So Kindle, Apple, Nook, Kobo, Google Play, Angus and Robertson, which I believe is an Australian thing, and Mondadori, which these kind of come part and parcel with publishing on Kobo. So so these are all your options for purchasing. And then this one is going to be available in audio eventually. I'm not done recording it yet, but if you go to the link for Saving the Dragon, there's also audio options if you are so inclined. So there's that. There's one thing I wanted to mention, and you said you weren't going to mention it, Rance, but I'm going to mention it because it's my prerogative to mention it. So for those of you who don't know, Rance is also an author, and he has a book coming out in July. And if you like, it's as different from mine as you can possibly get. But if you like westerns with gritty westerns with some paranormal elements and a protagonist who gets his butt kicked a lot, I'm like, I want to say I'm on like chapter 20 maybe. Anyway, I'm doing an advanced review copy review, and it's fantastic. So mark your calendars for July 2nd.
Thank you, friend. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I'm so excited. I was actually telling my wife today that I am so close to finishing one of the books that I'm on now. So my next book is Courting the Dragon. I can't wait. And I would like to encourage people too out there. I know if there's any indie authors out there or supporters or lovers of indie authors, make sure you guys drop a review of Courting the Dragon on every place that you can. It's okay to copy your reviews. So if you review it on Amazon, copy it over to Goodreads, copy it over to Barnes and Noble. And I think it's cool to mention that as well. Be like, hey, I originally put this on Amazon, but I'm putting it here because it really does help indie authors out a lot.
Yeah,
to be able to see that kind of stuff.
One of my advanced review people, she put it on, I think, almost everything, and it's like not all heroes wear capes because. Like, now I have a review on Barnes & Noble day one. I have a review on Kobo day one. I have a review on, on Amazon and Goodreads day one, which is phenomenal and very much appreciated. So we're getting close to the end, but I do have one little thing left, kind of a competition, if you will. And my ARC readers failed at this, so I'm going to give everybody a chance here. And if anyone wins this, and Matt, we're married and you are not allowed to play, just so we're clear.
Matt, I'll play for you.
He doesn't need a coffee mug. If the winner of this game will get one of the remaining coffee mugs. So. This game is Spot the Villain Song. This is my writing playlist from Courting the Dragon. The first person to put the villain song in the chat will win a mug. So.
Now I'm watching it on YouTube, so I'm like 3 seconds behind.
I'll just steal your coffee mug. Yeah, sure you will, babe. Sure you will.
Also, really good song choices, by the way. Definitely not what I expected.
Yeah, part of this is like I had to cut out a lot of stuff that was like a holdover from the old plot too.
Oh, Jem's got one. Jem has it was.
That is not the villain song.
Oh no.
Midori says what we ain't got. That is also not the villain song. Deirdre says over you. Also not the villain song. I mean, there's only so many options, but I don't know. I'm surprised that this is as hard as it is because to me it's really obvious what the villain song is. I left her first. Definitely not that one. That's like a daddy.
Is that about a dad singing to a kid?
Yeah, that's a daddy and me song. Which is like the best I could do for the end of the book. Yeah, so yeah, somebody thought "Marry Me" might be the villain song on Twitter, and so I'll tell you now that that's not the villain song. High hopes! Abby got it. Yes. Yeah.
Wait, Abby. Let's.
Yeah. Abby won. It is High Hopes. That is the villain song, because at the beginning of the book, Aurel and Leander do have very high hopes, and they think that they are going to raise themselves up in social status. So that is in fact the villain song. Everything else up until I Loved Her First is basically the MC's like complaining. Is the best way to put it.
Look, you gotta be able to complain about your status in life, but especially after like an instigating incident like you have at the very beginning of this, where it's like the two of them being the two of them were separated at the very beginning. So
yeah,
I'm watching as you type and seeing words show up here, seeing if things showed up in the chat as well.
Yeah.
So is there anything that is there anything that you want to leave us with, Sarah, or anything that you want to pump up? Like what are your social media things?
I should have put that. Wait, I can do that. We have the ability to put this on the screen actually. Where is it? So, this is probably like literally appearing on the screen right this second actually, which is probably really weird. So that is my handle on Twitter, Instagram, and like if you're doing like the / on Facebook. That is my social media everywhere except BookBub, I think, is something else, because I don't know. But I don't really use BookBub, so it doesn't matter. So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and you can also find oh, I see someone just said that Jem also said High Hopes before Abby did. Okay, I have enough mugs. I will give you both a mug. How's that sound? Since I missed the comment. Yeah.
There you go.
Except fair, I can't drink coffee. Well, you can use it for tea or juice. Or
yeah, I drink water out of mugs all the time. Yeah. I was drinking coffee out of my mug earlier today. It was just a teacher mug. It just says,
yeah,
it's just a teacher mug.
What I will say is I'm gonna try to reach out to everybody via whatever social media platform they entered the giveaway. So be watching your DMs. I'm not sure though, Jem, where. I don't know where you came from or who you are, so you might have to.
He's a bard.
You might have
Jem's a bard.
Well, I got that. Might have to. You might have to reach out to me. Or does YouTube have an individual? You know what?
You can message.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'll use YouTube then. So, yeah. We're talking about socials. So that's my social. All of my social links are also on my website. My website is sarah-cleveland.com. And you can also find, my ear itches. You can also find my blog there. I upload, indie book reviews every Monday. So obviously my upcoming review will be for His Ragged Company. And then, I don't know. I've got like a stack of arcs that I gotta go through. So
good on you. No, that's a tall order. That's a tall order. But it's always really nice to know that you're reviewing indie works in the process as well. You know, like you're writing them, but also reviewing them, and that can, I think, sometimes be hard to be honest and fair in that regard. So kudos to you, Sarah, for doing that.
Yeah. I'm trying to type an apology.
Oh, so Jem is one of Matt's friends.
Yeah, I wondered. I was wondering. I was thinking, is that somebody from Gempire? Was what I was thinking. I was wondering if it was an old guildmate. From. Oh no! What's that game? Archage. Did I get that right? There's a delay, so I gotta wait to see if I got that right. Yeah. So
I'm looking at the chat to see if it comes up. I have to look up to do it.
Trying to find
my chin again.
Okay, there's the thing to hide the thing. You know, I got it! Yay! Okay, we're gonna use one of my sound effects because I haven't used it.
Which one was it? Which sound effect was it?
The cheering. The cheering one. We didn't use the laugh track either, but that's okay. So yeah, I programmed a bunch of sound effects, and then I just like forgot they were there the entirety of the stream.
Always the best of intentions, and then it's like, oh, I forgot to use these. You get overwhelmed.
Okay, well, I think that's pretty much it. We're actually going to wrap up a little bit on the early side, but thank you everyone for coming. Thank you so much for the support. I really, really appreciate it, and thank you for making this stream like this. This is what I really hoped for. So thank you so much. I'll be reaching out to everybody about their prizes, and yeah, everybody's heel bot. Okay, sorry, chat's distracted me. All right, thank you so much, everyone. We're gonna sign off, but yeah,
Sarah, congratulations on your book. It's a really big deal. Second book. The books look absolutely beautiful, and you should really be proud of yourself. And I'm really glad to have met you on this journey as well. You were literally one of the first authors that I got the chance to meet on Twitter and to like watch what you do. And you do a phenomenal job. So I really hope that the sales of this should absolutely. I just hope that they absolutely match the effort that you've put into it and the care and the time that you've taken with it. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and thank you everyone in the chat. There's a bunch of congrats coming in. So thank you Abby, Deirdre, Rose, Midori, and Luke. Oh, is that Washington Luke? See, there's a bunch of people that I was not expecting in this chat. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your Father's Day. Again, I'm sorry that I'm bad at calendars. I shall endeavor to not pick a holiday for the next book release. I'm also going to not pick the day before one of Kat McDonald's books comes out, or Kate McDonald's books comes out. Like I'm gonna IM her like, hey, do you have a book coming out around this date? Because we're not doing this a second time. Because her for those who don't know, Kate McDonald's Hades and Persephone retelling comes out tomorrow, and if you love slow burn, and I mean slow burn romance, then you should definitely check that out. It's called Thief of Spring. See, I'm over here plugging everybody else's book on my release stream. But that comes out tomorrow. So yeah. All right. Thanks everyone.